Today we are excited to present our term project. Our group topic is inquiring exclusion cell outcome. Next slide, please. So here's the table content. We have background introduction, analysis, recommendation, and Q&A. Next slide, please. This is the project timeline from PA1 to PA7. Next slide, please. So for the background, our primary aim is to explore how salesperson can improve their interaction with customer by asking targeted, relevant questions and removing unnecessary details. This involves analyzing summarized sales conversation and understanding linguistic behavior that influence sales success. Next slide, please. So for the PA2, next slide, please. Our goal is to summarize and categorize cell conversation within a limited context, creating summary that fit within 500 raw limit. We categorize conversation based on personas and content requirements, generating hypothesis and reasoning through chain of thought. Next slide, please. So here we evaluate salesperson linguistic behavior to extract valuable insight. It turned the salesperson text is analyzed to ensure inquiries are clear and context specific. Effective inquiries should understand the consumer needs and avoid redefined script. Next slide, please. So here is about salesperson linguistic behaviors. We try to ask open-ended and clarifying questions, showing empathy, seek referrals, and highlighting product benefit. And for the active listening techniques, strategies such as summarizing, clarifying, and demonstrating value. And for the solution-focused responses, addressing customer need and concern with clear, relevant solutions. Next slide, please. So for the brown version, we have two versions. The first one is the information analysis, understanding consumer needs, preferences, and concern by analyzing cell conversations, identifying specific inquiries, the reason behind them, and the context of interactions. For the second version, interaction pattern, focusing on interaction patterns between salesperson and customers, examining effective linguistic behaviors and timing cues and alignment of responses with consumer need to drive successful outcomes. Next slide, please. Here's our teammate. We'll talk about the analysis one.
Next slide, please. So I'll start with the introduction of the problem. Next slide. So the primary problem addresses in PA3 is the improvement of the classification accuracy of sales inquiries using large language model. So the goal is to refine the approach by employing multiple shots and chain of thoughts prompting techniques. These improvements are essential to enhance the understanding of salesperson's linguistic behavior and consequently improve sales outcome by providing more precise analysis and insights from sale conversation. So next slide, please. So our current method of classifying sales inquiries with LLMs faces challenges in accuracy and reliability. To address these challenges, we implemented multiple shots prompting, which provide the model with several examples, improving its ability to generalize from varied context and enhance classification accuracy. And the second one is chain of thought prompting, which guides the model to follow a logical reasoning process, ensuring structured and coherent classifications. Also, this part has involved two key steps, which is API call and prompt metrics. Next slide, please. So here are some detailed assumptions about how the result likely changed from the first run to the last. First one is improved classification accuracy. So initially our model struggled with broader keywords, leading to higher misclassification rate. So by refining these keywords, our accuracy improved from 85.85% to 88.68%. Next is enhanced contextual understanding. So enhanced keywords and chain of thoughts prompting significantly improve the model context grasp, leading to more consistent and reliable classification. Next is reduced variability. So high variability in initial classification results was due to ambiguous keyword. Refining these keywords reduced variability, making the models perform more uniform and reliable. Next is efficiency in processing. So the initial process was slower due to broader keywords. By introducing specific keywords and improved prompting techniques, we made the classification process faster and more efficient. And the last is quality of insight and analysis, which improved the classification accuracy, led to more precise and insights. So next slide, please. So let's look at the result reflected in our table. So we can see initially the precision for the inquiring LLM was 36.36%. So by refining the keywords and integrating chain of thought prompting, we achieved a precision of 30.43%. Next, the recall metric saw a slight increases. Slight decreases. This decrease was anticipated as we traded off some recall for higher specificity in the classifications. Next, the FN score, which balances precision and recall, was initially 51.6% for the inquiring LLM. With our enhancements, we maintained an effective balance with the final score at 43.75%. Our overall classification accuracy showed a positive trend initially at 85.85% for the inquiring LLM. Through the improvements, accuracy remained robust at 88.68%. Next, my friend Marina is going to talk about. Next slide.
So for PA4, we go over dictionary-based classification. Next slide. The problem addressed is a dictionary classification approach for analyzing sales increase, and the objectives here is to improve the accuracy of classifying different types of sales increase using dictionary-based methods. The next slide. We analyze the results of the first run without modifications, and then the new run with the key phrases and words modifications. Next slide. The analysis of reasons behind the changes. About precision, there's a slight increase in precision for most matrices, suggesting that the modifications help reduce false positives. The slight refinement in exclusion phrases likely contributed to this improvement by filtering out more irrelevant phrases. In the recall area, there are significant decreases in recall for some matrices. This indicates an increase in false negatives, possibly because the new exclusion phrases filtered out some relevant inquiries. For F1 score, which is the harmonic mean of the precision and recall, shows mixed results. The slight improvements in precision did not always compensate for the decrease in recall, leading to overall declines in some matrices. This suggests that while the modifications helped make the model more precise, it also became less sensitive to detecting all relevant inquiries. And lastly, for accuracy, the changes here are relatively minor, with some matrices showing improvements and others showing declines. The accuracy reflects the overall correctness of the model, which seems to have benefited from more refined exclusion phrases in some cases, but suffered in others due to increased false negatives. As a conclusion for this part, the modifications to the exclusion phrases and dictionary entries led to slight improvements in precision, but caused significant drops in recall for some confusing matrices. This trade-off resulted in mixed outcomes for the F1 score and accuracy. The primary reason behind these changes in the stricter filtering of phrases, which helped reduce false positives, but also excluded some relevant inquiries, increasing false negatives. And next, Sandra and Cindy are gonna go over PA 5 and 6.
Thank you, Marina. Yeah, me and Cindy are gonna now present the findings and progress from project assignment 5 and 6. Next slide, please. In those assignments, we focus mainly on improving the classification accuracy of sales tactics into the sub-categories for a better predictive modeling, and just for the machine to better tag if it's an inquiry with a sales outcome as our topic. Our primary objective was to refine the prompts used in our Copilot model, enhancing its performance and ensuring that our control variables in the regression analysis are significant. Next slide, please. So let's start with our first run. It was without the categorical modifications. In our initial run, we noticed that several variables had significant negative coefficients, and this finding indicates that when these categories are used, the machine is less likely to correctly identify an inquiry. So those categories would probably need to be a little bit more well-defined and are confusing right now for the machine, which leads to misclassification. Next slide, please. So our second run was then with the categorical modifications, meaning we found some newer, more defined / better categories. And after making those modifications, we observed some key findings. Two of our categories, the product service introduction and the scheduling next steps, they were still providing negative coefficients. So we still would need to work on those and refine those with more accurate identification. But the needs and challenges assessment and solution relevance and customization, here we have positive coefficients. That indicates that these categories actually help the machine to correctly identify the inquiries. So they're well defined and clear for the machine to process. Next slide, please. Next to the categories, we also came up with some creative ideas. For example, we thought about keyword mapping. So we just create a list of phrases, of more phrases, then more categories, better categories. For example, here we have budget constraints, financial limitations, cost concerns. We would classify these keywords under new category, for example, financial concerns, to make that a category to have it as an inquiry. Then we would develop or increase our efficiency. So we would merge two rows or two turns together, make them one row so that it reduces the API costs. For example, row 33 and 35, we merge them to one row, which just says sure, okay, instead of sure and then okay. So we eliminate one row. And then we would also have the feedback recognition. So we just identify customer feedback, improvement requests indicating that the dissatisfaction or interest in better solutions would be also identified as an inquiry. And then as like another example, there might be some rows where there are words mentioned that are not even in the turn before, so they're making wrong turns. So we're just trying to analyze therefore any overlap and interaction between categories that could be causing confusion. And now I hand over the word to Cindy, and she's gonna provide more input.
Yeah, now I'm going to talk about some comparisons between our first run and new run. So for the p-value, both p-values are extremely small, which means that in both cases, the models provide significantly better fits than a simpler model would, while both values are close to zero, indicating strong model performance. The new run's p-value is smaller, implying a significant improvement in the model's explanatory power after the modifications. Next slide, please. For the coefficients, here the coefficient changes between the runs indicate shifts in how various factors are perceived to impact our sales outcomes after incorporating categorical modifications. Positive coefficients suggest strategies or behaviors that are effective and lead to better sales outcomes, while negative coefficients indicate actions or behaviors that may be counterproductive and should be minimized or approached differently. And so for our new run, it's clearly improved as we have 4 positive coefficients instead of no one in the original run. Next slide, please. For VAF, as we know, a VAF value greater than 10 is often considered problematic. These low VAF values suggest that these variables are not highly correlated with other predictors in the model, ensuring that their impact on the dependent variable is measured accurately without significant distortion from multicollinearity. The new variables introduced in a new run each have a low VF value, showing that they do not suffer from high multicollinearity and are reliable predictors in the model. And next, we're going to talk about recommendations for our term project.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about our recommendations. So for our first recommendations for P82, we want to personalize the inquiry. We want to tailor the question to the customer context and need by avoiding the standard script. And then we want to monitor and analyze the conversations continuously to identify successful pattern and area for the next data improvement. And moving on to our recommendation for PA3, first thing is chain of thought prompting. We want to ensure a logical reasoning for the model to accuracy classification for our data. Secondly, is to build an insight chaining for the wording analysis. With insight from improvement classification to navigate a good data. Then we want to improve our advanced validation tool by using the machine learning model for cost validations. We want to able to navigate the data better and faster, and also want to avoid hallucination as much as possible. And then for our PA4 recognition, we want to expand the dictionary by continuously update and expand the classification dictionary. Then we want to integrate it with training with using the insight to enhance the cell training program. After that, we want to continue to monitor and improve the classification approach. And then for our PA5 and 6 recommendations, firstly, we want to understand the prompt better by revising it. By revising the prompt, we can enhance the classification accuracy, and then we can go thoroughly assess the data to see if there anything that need to focus on or just. And then next is the role orientation confirmation. This is one of the things we also want to highlight, because by understanding the role and organization early in it is beneficial for us to navigate the data later on. Last but not least, we want to develop an advanced training model. By doing this, we want to develop a comprehensive training model with case study and role play and scenario. And this is consumed of our presentation. Thank you for your participation. We will move on to Q&A questions.